Everyone loves a rant, right? Hi, I'm Beck. I love books. And here are 10 things that I thought we had left in 2024, but apparently we have not. The first thing that I really hoped that we had left in 2024 is the phrase, book talk made me buy it. This is a phrase, if you don't know, that is used in major retailers, especially Amazon, to try and promote popular books, I suppose, to the general public. And my question is, surely, in 2025, we have all come to the conclusion that if a book says, book talk made me buy it, and you want to jump on a trend, you've already missed the trend by the time it says that, firstly. And secondly, the vast majority of books that go really viral and popular on Book Talk tend to be quite overhyped and overrated anyway. Is it just me? I mean, I don't really understand who this trend is for. And also the phrase, book talk made me buy it. That doesn't speak to me. If something made you buy something, it's forcing you to spend your money on something that you might not really want. It's not book talk made me read it. It's not the best book I've ever read. It's book talk made me buy it. Okay. And then what? Book talk made you buy it. And what? Did you like it? Did you not like it? I don't really understand who this phrase is for. In fact, if I am book shopping, if I'm looking for a book, if I'm scrolling a website, if I am looking in an actual bookshop and I see a book talk stand or the phrase book talk made me buy it, I'm so much less likely to want to buy the book. And I thought that was generally something that people had kind of accepted in 2025. And yet I'm still seeing it everywhere. I thought we'd left it in 2024. Perhaps we should have. The second thing that I think we definitely should have left in 2024, but apparently it's not being left behind for a while, is the term romantasy. Now, I do not have a problem with romance in fantasy, and I do not have a problem with fantasy in romance. My issue with the term romantasy is it pleases nobody. We have romance readers who pick up a romantasy book because they're looking for a primarily romance-based plot. Great. There's too much fantasy in here for me. I don't really like it. There wasn't enough smut, etc. I mean, that's what happens when you have a generic term that's being touted by marketers. If you're a fantasy lover like me, and all of the books that are being released just now are romantasy, you just kind of have to take a gamble and hope that the romance takes a sort of sideline to the fantasy plot. I just pick up a romantasy book and I'm like, please let them not touch until 80% of the way through the book, because it will just completely detract from the world building, the tension, the secondary characters, the actual story. For example, there was a book I read last year with some friends, last December, called Quicksilver. It's one of those book talk made me buy it books. You might have heard of it. It was a romantasy book. The fantasy element of it, though, was really good. The world building was really good. The plot was unusual. The characters were vibrant. I was really interested in what was happening. The pace was great. But there was an almost insta-love romance in it. And every time I would read about this partnership that was in this book, I'd be like, oh, they're touching again. I just wanted to get back to the fantasy story. So romantasy as a definition for me did not work for that book. I feel like it could have been an amazing fantasy novel, but because of that, it was ruined for me. And a lot of people are saying that there wasn't enough romance in it. And I just feel like the term romantasy, it means nothing. We go back to fantasy romance or romance with magical elements. Go back to more specific definitions, please, because romantasy just means nothing. There's also, because it is so popular, a lot of authors are feeling a lot of pressure from publishers to churn these big series out, these big romantasy series out, where they're having to write a book, 2 books every year, really burn themselves out because the appetite for this fantasy romance mishmash is so large. But if for whatever reason, your fantasy romance, your romantasy book falls flat, then you've already written the story that you wanted to write. You've added some spice and some romance into it to make it what is popular just now. And you've just diluted your own idea. There is also this huge prejudice among a lot of people that don't read romance or fantasy books. Because they are primarily written by women for women, they are seen as being lesser books. I don't think in any way, shape or form that fantasy books with romance in them are lesser books than other fantasy books. I don't think romance books are less books than fantasy books. It's just this generic term, this bland romantasy term, that I just don't really understand what it is, because it means so many different things for so many people. I was in a bookshop and they have separated out a whole bunch of books from their young adult section and their fantasy section, and they've made a romantasy section. I was actually looking for a novel and I couldn't find it because I didn't know that this romantasy section existed, because I checked fantasy, then I checked young adult, and then I asked somebody because I'd seen that they had it in stock, and it turns out it was in their new romantasy section. Can we just not, please? That term is too generic. It should have stayed in 2024, and it hasn't. So we need to leave it behind. Okay, something that's a bit sillier now and a bit more personal is the word undulating. Okay? So I read, I think it was Into the Drowning Deep by Mira Grant last year. I think it's that book that I read. And I came across the word undulating in that book. And in case you didn't know, undulating, I have the exact definition right here. Undulating is having a smoothly rising and falling form or outline. So you could say like hills were undulating, like a horizon. So I saw the word undulating in this book that I read last year. And ever since that, you know when you spot something or when something's pointed out to you and you can't unsee it? Ever since that, every blooming book that I have read, honestly, almost every book, to the sort of extent that I feel like a trick is being played on me. I feel like somebody is playing a trick on me. Every blooming book that I have read, something has undulated. Something has been undulating. Her form was undulating. Her breath was undulating. Her throat was undulating. The sound was undulating. And I mean, I'm just... How is this word only just come onto my horizon? Who told me that was... Who decided? Who decided it was the word of 2024? But having said that, I was like, right, last year was the year of undulating. This year, there's going to be a different word, and I'm going to read it everywhere. Nope, still undulating. It's such a personal, stupid thing, but can that word please stay in 2024? Can it not come through with us? Because it really, really takes me out of the immersion of the book. Because I'll be like, undulating again! So if you're writing a book just now, could you please not use the word undulating? Thank you so much, because I would enjoy your book more. Okay, so the fourth thing that I think should have stayed in 2024, but hasn't, is more of a serious thing. And that is people who say audiobooks are not reading. So, to try and explain to you why this annoys me so particularly much, I am a teacher. I do deal with lots of young people and their literacy. And I have done a lot of research about using audiobooks as a substitution for reading. Let me tell you something. No matter what you use reading for, audiobooks have been proven over many, many, many times to be an equivalent, if not better, medium. So, for example, we'll just talk about children and young people to begin with. In children and young people, 3 out of 10 children and young people who don't enjoy reading enjoy audiobooks. So there is increased enjoyment. So if you read for enjoyment, how is there an argument here? If there is some form of gap in education, which, I mean, there are so many gaps. We have gender gaps, we have poverty-related gaps, we have gaps depending on your deprivation, your racial background, so many of these gaps. But the vast majority of gaps that exist in terms of literacy with children and young people can be shortened, can be closed slightly through accessing audiobooks as opposed to physical books. The gaps are consistently smaller if audiobooks are used in terms of literacy than if physical books are used. I mean, that's crazy. If you read to support your well-being, 1 in 3 children said that reading helped them feel better during difficult times. If you think reading helps you connect to other people, and that's why audiobooks don't do it for you, then there's actually studies that show that listening to a human voice helps increase empathy and understanding. There are so many sources, so many places that you can find research. I'll link a couple down below in the description box that prove time and time again that the benefits of reading absolutely transcend modality. It does not matter if you listen to a book or if you look at a book with your eyes. The vocabulary learning is the same. The literacy growth is the same, if not better. I just don't understand why somebody can have all of this research at their fingertips and still, in 2025, be like, I'm sorry, audiobooks for me just aren't reading. What do you want from your books? What is reading to you that audiobooks do not provide? And now I understand having a preference. I understand not liking audiobooks. I totally understand that. But blanket statements saying that they're not reading, that should have been left behind. I don't know why it hasn't been left behind. And moving forward, it has to be left behind. It has to go. It has to go. Another sillier one now, sort of, I don't know, put brackets around my serious arguments here. I thought that we had left behind, not even in 2024, I thought maybe in 2022 we had left behind titles that take the form a blank of blank and blank. Like A Court of Thorns and Roses, Sisters of Salt and Sorrows, Court of Mist and Fury, A Heart of Blood and Ashes, Song of Ice and Fire. I thought we had left that behind. But looking at the fantasy books that are supposed to be coming out in 2025 into 2026, we clearly have not left this behind. I'm not including series that started this way and now we're on book 6 and they have to keep to the same format. I'm talking about writers writing new series, new trilogies, and they are still using this, a blank of blank and blank format. It is now so typical, so stereotypical, I guess, of fantasy series that people are using it to make, I guess, jokes about fantasy series. You can make a fantasy title of your own just by subbing random words in the blanks. I have a lovely friend that I follow called Camilla on Instagram, and she's done a lot of work recently encouraging people to sort of create their own fantasy story based on their star sign. I'll link her down below as well so that you can go and check it out if you're interested. But one of the things that she included in that, as the last slide, you could sub in your birthday and the month that you were born, things like that, to create a book title based on a blank of blank and blank. So you could have had A Sea of Storms and Clouds. Because it is so typical of these fantasy novels. Can we stop it, please? Because I cannot remember what I've read. I will go into a bookshop, I will look at books on a shelf, and I'll be like, Sister of Sorrow in this. Oh wait, no, Daughter of Blood and Bone. Oh no, wait, no, that was House of Blood and Ruin. Oh no, wait, they're all the same. They're all the same. Can we just stop it, please? Surely that can't help people sell books. Surely having a title that is absolutely interchangeable with all of these other titles, surely that cannot help you sell books. If there is something that says that books that are in this format sell more, please let me know. Really interested to know. But that cannot possibly be a good thing, to have a title that's absolutely unremarkable in every way and to confuse readers about whether they have or have not read your book. Surely. We need to leave that behind. It has to go. Something else that definitely I thought we had left behind, but we clearly haven't, is Not only comparing how much you have read yourself to other people, but making nasty comments towards other people about how much they have read. I was honestly on Facebook last night. Yes, I'm old. And I was looking at one of the book groups that I'm in, and somebody had said, finally had a chance to post my 2024 reading wrap up, and they'd read 120 books, 123 books or something. And somebody commented on their post and they were like, you clearly don't work or have children. I'm sorry, excuse me? How dare you? You do not have the right to judge how much time somebody puts into a hobby and make sweeping statements about their life because of that. I thought that we had left that behind. I thought that we, as readers, really had come together as a community. More than that. This year we've had TikTok has gone in America. Oh no, wait, it's back with a political motive. We've had the creation of Blue Sky, where readers really have come together in their thousands. We've had so much strength as a bookish community staying together despite all of these different things sort of breaking up. In the UK even, the high street decline is continuing, but bookshops and book selling this year bucked the trends. So actually, at the end of last year, the rest of the high street had suffered losses, but bookshops made profits because the reading renaissance is real. Readers are really, really coming together. And I just don't understand why we have such a strong, resilient community of readers who are choosing to tear what everyone else is reading down in terms of just the number of books that they read. The only person who can decide if you've read enough or too much, or if you're making good use of your time, or if you're reading the right things, or if you're happy with the amount of books that you've read, the only person that can decide that is yourself. Surely that's common sense. I thought that we had made that decision. I thought that we had left that in 2024. I really did. I didn't expect to see too much more of that this year. But already I have. Can we please leave that behind? Another thing, this is a bit of another silly one, that I think that we definitely have to stop and we have to leave behind in 2024 is what I'm going to call thesaurus colours. Now, it was this time, no, it wasn't this time last year, it was maybe September, October last year, I think. I was reading Phantasma. Phantasma is kind of like the story Caraval wished it was, but without the beauty of Stephanie Garber's fairy tale writing. I was reading Phantasma with my friend Lizzie. And this is another one of those once you see it you can't unsee it things. And Lizzie messaged me and she was like, this author needs to really understand that I understand that the character is wearing red. And so there was this character and they were wearing red. But within a 2-page span, this character was not just wearing red. They were wearing crimson, scarlet, ruby, vermilion. I mean, we get it. We are reading your book. We have read that they're wearing red. We have read they're wearing red. And we have not forgotten that. You don't have to keep reminding us that the character is wearing red. And ever since it happened in that book, I'm seeing it everywhere. Where people have, obviously, editors have been like, you used the word red 7 times on that page. And instead of just thinking, they know, I don't need to say it 7 times, writers are like, right click, thesaurus. I'm sure they're not, but that's how it feels. I was reading a book literally last week, and the main male character had green eyes. And instead of saying his eyes glinted, because we knew they were green, we had the emerald gleam, we had olive, we had lime, we had vert, like French. Firstly, they're all different colours. Like, they're all different colours of green. And secondly, we get it. We're reading your book. Can you just trust us to remember that the eyes are green? Now, I don't know if this is maybe they really want to ham the fact that the eyes are green down because there have been problems with covers being produced for writers and the character is described as perhaps being black and the cover's made and the character's white. I know there are things like that have happened that are big issues and the author doesn't have much say over what the cover art is, or any say sometimes, if they are traditionally published. But as readers, we do get it. Tell me a couple of times. I will remember, I promise. It needs to stop. As we go forward into the rest of 2025, I don't want to see it anymore. Thank you so much. This kind of leads us on to another more serious one. As I said, I am trying to sort of sandwich the serious ones in between the sort of less serious ones. And something that I prayed that we had left in 2024, that apparently we have not, is problematic authors. Can they just shut up? Like, I don't know how else to say it. If you do not come out and speak in support of marginalised communities, especially if you're a young adult author, then could you at least say nothing? And I know that saying nothing is not advocating, and I'm not advocating for that either, but it would be better than coming out and saying things that are absolutely horrendous, that are really, really damaging to groups of people. And again, especially if you're a young adult writer, you're either going to influence, perhaps, the young people who love you and read your books into forming the same damaging mindsets as you, or you are simply just going to damage them because they will think that you think that they are not worth your opinion, or they will think that you think that they are not worthy human beings. I mean, could you just, if you can't come out in support of marginalised communities for whatever reason, not everybody does have the privilege to speak out loudly, and I do understand that, could you just say nothing? If possible. I don't mean if you're directly asked either, but like, at the very least, could you stop? Another thing that is connected to that, it's not an additional item on my list, but it's to do with creators sort of supporting these problematic writers. And I just think that shaming creators for doing it, I would like that to stay in 2024 as well, because not all creators, there are some people who will absolutely fundamentally shout out about really problematic authors, and they'll be at the forefront of their frames, and they won't care what you say about the writer, etc. I'm not talking about them. You can shame them all you want. I'm talking about creators that they'll read a book and they are not the most present on the internet. They might genuinely not know that this writer is problematic. I've been speaking to some bookish friends who had absolutely no idea about any of the Neil Gaiman allegations. People genuinely sometimes can't understand that there are niches of the internet and there are pockets of the world where people's own lives will take over and they will not hear that an author has done something problematic. And I would just like for us to go forward in 2025 to hold people accountable, but with kindness. That would be really nice for me, because I had an experience of that and it really, really made me feel included and welcomed and seen in the community. I try and read as diversely as I can. I run a diverse reading challenge, but everybody makes mistakes. Everybody misses things. So, for example, I was promoting a book last year. I wasn't promoting it. I'd shared that I had liked this book on my stories. And somebody messaged me and they were like, hey, I know that, you know, the things that you advocate for, and I know the person that you are. And I don't know if you know this, but the person that you've just posted a book by is a TERF. They're a huge TERF. And I was like, I was so upset that I had posted this book, that the upset that I felt about posting this book, it would have been exacerbated to the point of me not being able to come on social media probably, if the person who'd reached out to me hadn't done it with that kindness. And I feel like, I mean, I absolutely was like, oh my gosh, I didn't know. And then I posted saying like, I just promoted this book. Please don't read it. The author is, you know. And I tried to make amends for my mistake, and everyone was like, yeah, thanks for letting me know, moved on. I wish that for 2025, I know a lot of you are great at holding people accountable, and I would love for you to continue that. But for the smaller creators who might not know, those of you who've reached out to people with kindness, You are the people that I want in 2025. Thank you so much for being kind. Thank you for understanding that not everybody knows everybody. Not everybody knows all the things that happen with all the different writers. But it is important to let people know about them so they can choose if they want to support them publicly or not. There are books that I've read that are by problematic writers. I've already read them. I can't take them back. You will see them on my yearly roundup that I have read these books. I found out about the writer afterwards. It is what it is. Everybody, sadly, too many people are horrible, and not everybody's perfect about predicting who's going to be horrible. But if the authors could keep their mouth shut and be better, and if people who make content on the internet to do with books could treat other people who make those mistakes with a little bit of kindness, I think that would make 2025 a much happier place. Okay, my final 2 points are kind of connected, and they are quite personal to me, so I understand if they're not things that you feel that you would ever need to rant about. But the first one of the final 2, so this would be number 9, is particularly in fantasy books, female main characters just not eating. And I'm not saying that in fantasy books where the meals aren't described, etc. I don't need that in a fantasy book. If you don't describe the meals, that's absolutely fine. If we don't see the character eating, that's absolutely fine. But I'm talking about female main characters especially not eating to the point of disordered eating. They're supposed to be warriors. They're supposed to be on the road. They're supposed to be in battles. They don't know when their next meal is going to be. And yes, they might not eat because of stress. Yes, they might be anxious. But that's not these characters that I'm talking about. I'm talking about characters that are like seasoned warriors, or characters that know that they have to do strength training. And despite all of this, they'll be like, oh, I couldn't possibly eat a loaf of bread. I couldn't possibly eat anything. And it seems to be used sometimes as a sort of character trait, as a sort of cutesy thing that the character does. Oh no, I'm so dainty. I couldn't possibly have a morsel of food. And firstly, it's unrealistic. They would need their strength. They would need to eat. They wouldn't know where their meal was coming from. There wouldn't be any of this dainty, tiny maiden nonsense. And secondly, it is just disordered eating that you're showing. Somebody refusing to eat or not wanting to eat, and then the male main character sweeping in and making sure that they eat and feeding them, because it is generally always in FM books that I'm seeing this. It's not cutesy. We need to not bring it further into 2025. It should never have come into 2025. It's just so stupid. Like, why? Why is it seen as a cutesy, demure character trait for a female main character? I don't get it. I'll never get it. And it is almost glamorizing disordered eating. It's not for me. But that does lead into my final point of my gigantic rant. I'm very sorry. And that is almost the converse of this. And it is poor writing of plus size main characters in books. That poor writing should have stayed in 2024. It should not be coming into 2025. But sadly, from what I'm seeing, that seems to not be the case. So, if you're reading a romance book, there seems to be an awful lot of impossible positions still described that, I'm sorry, bigger people would not be able to do that. Don't write as a not plus size person about plus size bodies if you don't actually know how they are, how they work. That's one bugbear that I have. Another bugbear is slight curves being touted as plus size. That's damaging to everybody. It's damaging to plus size women who think they're going to see a book that represents them and they have to read a book that does not represent them. And it's also damaging to women who are curvier because they see themselves now as plus size because this is what the book is presenting plus size as being. It's just not generally handled the best, I don't think. In terms of the actual storyline of these books, A lot of the stories seem to have happy endings that involve the plus size main character losing weight or getting smaller, or they're happier at the end and so the weight's naturally fallen off them. And that's just fundamentally unhelpful. As somebody who does have disordered eating, it is unhelpful to read a book where the character is happy ever after and their happy ending involves them actually not being plus size anymore. That's not plus size representation. It's really not. It's so damaging, and we should never have brought it into 2025. You should know better by now. Another thing that, in terms of these plus size characters, that I feel like we should see in the books, but we don't, is the generic fat phobia that exists in the world. Like, I have been through in my life so much fat shaming, so much inherent things just from the public that are inherently negative to do with my weight, the way I look. There are so many places, if you're a plus size woman, that are actually not accessible for you. There's cafes that have got little teeny tiny stools, and there's so many things that you actually are limited to if you are a big plus size person. There's so many things that limit you in your life. And I am fortunate in that I have managed, because I wanted to lose some weight. So a lot of these things don't affect me as much as they did, but they still affect me, especially the public perception of plus size people. And hardly any novels at all include any of that. And I don't want it to be upsetting to people. I know people read books to lose themselves in it, but it's also not real. Why are these plus size main characters just seen as these objects of desire and there's never any negativity at all? Because that is also not real, because I mean, you can't have both things. You can't have a main character who's finally losing weight because they're happy at the end, but also they have no confidence in themselves, but the world around them has never been negative to them. Like, you don't just develop a lack of confidence because the world has always been positive to you. It's not realistic. And the final thing, compared to the seriousness of that, the final thing to do with this sort of badly written plus size women and men, the plus size representation of men is absolutely almost non-existent in literature. I've read as many plus size male representation books as I can. There are not that many. But in terms of plus size women in particular, plus size books in general, the thing that really, really has to stop, if none of the rest of that stops, the thing that has to stop for the rest of 2025 is the food puns. Food references and puns. If I read one more book title that's got a food pun in it with a plus size main character, if I see one more cover that's got pizza or a donut, or if I read one more plus size main character book where there's like food puns but they're made by the female main character as a joke, etc. We like other things, you know. Plus size people have other hobbies. They have other likes. Our world isn't just food. And it really gets to me. If I see a book that has a pun title to do with food, as a plus size woman, there is not a chance I'm reading that book. I am no way reading that book, because you are absolutely shoehorning me and stereotyping me. So can we please leave that behind as well? So thanks so much if you've made it this far in my rant. Thanks for listening. What are things that you wish did not come through into 2025? What things do you think that we should leave behind? And do you agree with anything that I have said? Or am I completely off the mark? Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next week. Bye.